Okay, I'm trying to find you, Janet. Can you unmute yourself, Janet? Hit *6. Janet? Janet, can you unmute yourself? Janet Phelan, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Okay, I
Hello?
see you now. I see you now. We'll start again.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Hi, Frank. Hi, everybody. This is Janet Phelan calling in from south of the border. So I'd like to talk a bit today about the situation with Nils Melzer vis-a-vis the Special Rapporteur's Office and the United Nations. And I'd also like to talk about some other options that are available within the UN to draw more attention to our situation. I understand that a lot of people have felt very disappointed that Melzer did not address our issue in the October 15th report. People were led to believe that he would, and he did not. And then when I went ahead and contacted his office, we were informed through his assistant, Mrs. Alir, that he was not investigating what he is calling cyber torture. Now, so the question is, where does that leave us? I personally think that Nils Melzer did a wonderful thing for all of us in that earlier report when he actually mentioned cyber torture, mentioned some of the mechanisms that were being used through not only the internet, but through implants and other means to torture people. And I think that has given us a platform and more credibility that we need to take that and move on. And it's possible that at a later date he may decide to revisit this. I don't know. But I am simply accepting him at his word. And as I see no evidence, given his subsequent reports after the February-March report where he did mention cyber torture, I see no evidence that he's moving forward with this. So to start with, I'd like to go over a little bit about the situation with the UN and human rights treaties. As some of you may know, I'm getting a barrage of attacks concerning that article. I want you to know I stand by that article 100%. I did not slander anyone, I did not defame anyone, and I did not give out false information. So one of the problems is, and one of the things brought up in the article is that the UN does not pass laws. And I'd like to clarify a little bit about how the UN operates here. The UN can offer treaties for signature and ratification. Now, those treaties, whether or not, let's say, the United States has to abide by a treaty or not, depends on a multitude of things. First of all, if the U.S. refuses to sign a treaty, and the treaty organization essentially has no jurisdiction over the U.S. Now, this is different, of course, than, let's say, if Congress passes a law, the law applies, allegedly, although we're seeing a lot of problems in law, aren't we? And you, as a U.S. citizen, don't have the right to say, okay, I'm not signing on to that law, it doesn't apply to me. But when the UN proposes treaties, opens them for signatures, countries can simply decline to sign on and ratify the treaty, in which case the treaty does not apply to them. Now, the U.S. has a history of dissing human rights treaties. I have here a list of, I believe, 4 out of a multitude of human rights treaties. There are 4 that I understand the U.S. has signed and ratified. I'm actually looking at a website, civilrights.org. Now, the first one that pops up here is the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which the U.S. signed in 1977, ratified in 1992. There's the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, U.S. signed in 1966, ratified in 1994. Convention Against Torture, U.S. signed in 1988 and ratified in 1994. And finally, there is a Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, U.S. signed in 1948, ratified in 1988. Now, signing and ratification is not absolute, because very often countries like the U.S. Sign with what they call reservations. And these reservations often diminish any international jurisdiction over the U.S.'s behavior in terms of the treaty organization. For example, when the U.S. signed and ratified the Convention Against Torture, it did so with reservations. And these reservations are often relevant to something which states that the treaty will not be self-executing, which becomes a real problem, because when you sign with a reservation saying the treaty won't be self-executing, you're essentially diminishing the jurisdiction of the treaty body over your own behavior. So the U.S.
You have a person with a question. That would be Scylla.
Sure.
Go ahead, Scylla.
Hi, it's Scylla from Massachusetts. I guess I was just curious about how you're talking about the ratification. So, I mean, pretty much you're answering the question, but I guess I don't really know if it's a question. But when you even look online, it says torture is illegal in the United States. So maybe...
That's not true. That is not true. That is not true.
No, I know. I'm just saying maybe you're going to finish what I'm asking you anyway, so maybe I can just let you, go ahead and continue to talk about what you're talking about. But yes, you're correct, though. It isn't true, because look at where we are. So, but you can continue. I think you're answering.
Okay. Do you want to ask? Okay. Let me just explain about the U.S. Federal law concerning torture, and I'm going to pull it up so I can cite it exactly as I'm speaking. 1 second here. The law governing torture on a federal level states that torture, it defines torture as something that occurs, the statute here, I'm reading it exactly from the Department of Justice, okay? The statute only applies to acts of torture committed outside the U.S. And the code is Title 18, Section 2340A, I believe. Okay? So you can look it up yourself. Torture is defined as something that occurs outside the borders of the U.S. Now, that's a very interesting sort of Orwellian twist here, because you can't actually contact the Department of Justice and say, I was tortured. They say where, and you say Massachusetts. They say, can't happen here. Okay? Now, that being said, there are federal laws on the books that prohibit assault, battery, murder, that kind of thing. So people are trying to use those existent laws to find redress for their own situation. But torture, no, doesn't happen in the U.S., according to the U.S. So does that help?
Yes.
Janet, could you quote that statute again, please?
Yeah, it's Title 18, Section 2340A. I'm reading from the Department of Justice website, which says the statute applies only to acts of torture committed outside the United States.
Okay. Thank you, Scylla. Next
Thank you.
question is from Vicky.
Hi, Vicki.
Janet, hi, can you hear me?
Sure can. Thank you for calling.
No, that's okay. Sometimes my mic works, sometimes I don't. It's problematic. I'm at home on my computer. Did they give any reason why they're not addressing it? He basically acknowledged it's happening. Am I correct?
He basically what? I'm sorry?
He acknowledged at least it is happening. Am I correct in that assumption?
Well, I don't know what he's acknowledged or hasn't, because, I have produced the email that was sent to me. It's my understanding that given the enormous amount of responses to his call out for reports and documents from the targeted community, that he'd have to be blind, deaf, and dumb not to know it's happening. I'm assuming he read the report.
Was there a public acknowledgement that electronic torture is happening? Because I saw some things he was supposed to have put out that did mention the chips and the electronic weaponry earlier. And
that was in the February report.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. Did he give a reason why he's not addressing it, considering the number of people complaining about it? Is there any rationale?
I wasn't provided with any. There are people who are saying that his funding was attacked. Particularly, I guess, funding from Norway was attacked, and that this may have influenced his decision. But I don't know. I'm not privy to his decision making, his reasoning, so I really don't know.
Okay, yeah, and I had enclosed a link. It's a TI I communicate with. She had filed with the International Criminal Court. She went through a big, all the documentation. She lives in Canada, and they still turned her down. And they said,
that's Bobby Peach.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and they said it was still out of their jurisdiction. So where do you go, and how do you get somebody to prosecute this?
Well, this is a real problem, isn't it? Go ahead.
I have a question.
Sure.
It lands right on the top. Yeah, I'm right here.
Okay.
If you do not get satisfaction in the United States, don't you have the right to seek the International Court?
Basically,
this is a very important question, and I'd like to try to answer that before you speak, Scylla. There is another international treaty, I guess, called the Rome Statute, and the Rome Statute establishes the jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court, and the U.S. has not signed and ratified the Rome Statute. and therefore the International Criminal Court does not have jurisdiction over the U.S.
Yeah, but okay, Bobby is a Canadian citizen, and she filed. I mean, she has like an hour rejection letter on there and all the evidence she went through, and they still said it was out of their jurisdiction.
Yes, I saw that. I know. It's
okay.
Terrible. Terrible.
Okay, but the UN gave no reason as to why they're not addressing it, because there's a lot of people across the globe involved that are targeted with this crap.
Aren't there?
Okay.
I know.
Okay.
Suppose
thanks,
you
Shannon.
move to another country, and that country has ratified the UN treaty. Then you have clean ground to the International Court. But if you take asylum in another country, wouldn't that be the same?
If you what?
Claim political asylum in another country, like, I don't know, just pick one, Norway, we'll say, and they have signed on to the treaty. Will they handle the case? Because the United States is clearly, the United States is clearly backed out of everything that has to do with torture, because we are so lily-white that we don't have any, according to them.
Well, as we discussed, I think on your last coverage of this, the individual who responded to Nils Melzer's most recent report to the UN, which was on the psychosocial structures that were enabling torture. His name is Matthew Olmstead, and he essentially he denied that Julian Assange or Chelsea Manning, who actually attempted to commit suicide after she was placed in solitary confinement when she refused to answer certain questions that might have, attempting to destroy Julian Assange, apparently what the questions were about. So she attempted suicide, and Matthew Olmstead is denying that what has happened to Julian Assange or to Chelsea Manning constitutes torture, and he's also stating how robust and vigorous the U.S. is in attempting to eradicate torture worldwide, because of course it doesn't happen here, So what I am trying to do, and I have emailed the permanent mission for the U.S. to the UN, trying to get Mr. Olmstead's contact information, because I think he also needs to be advised of a little bit. He needs to get a dose of reality here, because he's making public statements that are inherently propagandistic and untrue. So, and as far as, it's an interesting construct that you're proposing, Frank. There are a few people.
Excuse me. Are you kicking a bucket underneath your desk, perhaps?
No. Outside, somebody's setting off fireworks.
Oh,
they do that a lot here. It's one of their. They celebrate by setting off fireworks, so you might be hearing that. So, so basically, attempting to gain asylum if you are a U.S. citizen is not impossible, but is damn near impossible. And there are political reasons for this. For a country to grant asylum to an American citizen would be to admit that the U.S. is abusing their citizens and their rights. And that is a political hot potato, because as we know, nothing bad happens here. Okay?
We have a question for you from David.
Well, let me just finish my sentence, please. Okay? So I actually contacted the High Commissioner for Refugees to get some figures as to how many U.S. citizens had been given asylum in a particular time period. I think it was a few years. I believe there were, I don't have the figures right in front of me, but there was like over 300 applications for asylum from U.S. citizens elsewhere, and 13 were granted. And just so people know, they were granted in Great Britain and in Australia. Those were the only countries which had accepted U.S. citizens as refugees. Okay, what's the next question? Thank you for letting me finish.
Okay, go ahead, David.
Yeah, Frank, I just had a question for you. Is your show still targeted Massachusetts? Is that show still on RBN?
No, sir, it is not. I am moving onward and upward to a different station.
Oh, really? Well, where can I find the show at?
I will let you know.
All right, yeah, let me know, man. I appreciate it. I'm sorry to hear that things didn't work out at RBN. I'm going to miss the show.
Yeah, you'll have it again. You'll have it back again. Probably 2 hours versus 1 hour.
Oh, that sounds good. Thanks, Frank.
All right, sir. Thank you. Okay, Janet.
Okay. So we were talking about the possibility of getting political asylum. Very difficult. And in fact, some of the countries where, for example, I contacted Iceland at one point in time trying to find out if that would be a fertile field for requesting asylum. And I found out some very disturbing things. Not only do they not believe, their official statement is they don't believe that U.S. citizens require asylum anywhere because the U.S. has a robust and healthy justice system, number one. And so if you attempt to go to Iceland and to request asylum, you will not get the general services that asylum seekers get. You will be treated as trash because they don't believe you. That the structure and their perception is they won't believe you and they won't give you any services and you can go to hell. So.
Oh, how nice of them, huh?
Yeah, well, it's one big Orwellian cluster, fill in the blank, right? So, are there any other questions right now? I can go into something else that I think people might want to know about the UN.
Yes. Oh, go right ahead.
Okay. First of all, excuse me. Let me just make a note here. So I'm. Okay, I want to point out some of the other issues surrounding the UN and treaties. This is not directly relevant to human rights, but may have actually, shall we say, relevance to the pandemic, for one thing. Okay. Now, I published an article with Activist Post several years ago called Lies, Damnable Lies and Downright Dangerous Lies. Okay. And in this article, I took a look at the weapons treaties that the U.S. has signed and ratified, specifically the Biological Weapons Convention and the Chemical Weapons Convention. And I also took a look on the advice of another delegate to the Biological Weapons Convention. I took a look at the UN 1540 Committee. The 1540 Committee attempts to provide another level of oversight to these armament issues, specifically chemical, biological, and nuclear. So in terms of the Biological Weapons Convention, the U.S. is submitting false documents to the convention. That has been absolutely ferreted out and is reported thoroughly in that article. The U.S. is providing false documents and in some cases simply neglecting to file documents that might implicate the U.S., documents that they are politically mandated to enter into the convention body. One of those is what is called confidence building measures. Now, the Biological Weapons Convention has no verification mechanism, no investigatory mechanism, which means that if somebody goes to the Biological Weapons Convention and says, we think that China deliberately released COVID, the Bioweapons Convention can't do anything about it. They can't investigate. They can't verify. They just sit there, their bums, suspended in the air, going, "Oh, good golly, gee whiz, isn't that awful?" Now, how did that happen? How did it happen that an international treaty governing very dangerous weapons has no verification protocol? Well, it hasn't. This transpired because precisely and totally because of the actions of the United States. After a number of years of meetings, an ad hoc committee attached to the Biological Weapons Convention finally hammered out a verification mechanism to be presented to the convention at large to be approved. That was in 2001, just months before the events of September 11 and the anthrax attack. Now, at that point, the delegation to the Biological Weapons Convention was led by Ambassador, you'll recognize this name, John Bolton. And John Bolton instructed the U.S. delegates to boycott, to get up and walk out of the convention, and that's exactly what happened. So this is history. You can Google this and find this all out on your own. So that's why there's no verification mechanism. That's why nobody can go to the BWC and say, gee, what's going on with COVID? Okay, there's nothing they can do. So the second level that I checked was the Chemical Weapons Convention, and I found similar nonsense attached to the U.S.'s behavior around that convention. Just to give one specificity here, the Chemical Weapons Convention mandates that all of the countries that sign on to that convention, they have to destroy their chemical weapons. Did the U.S. destroy their chemical weapons? Did not. They keep asking for extensions. Oh, we can't quite do it yet. So give us a few more decades. This, again, is a matter of fact. Now, that article that I wrote is also looks into the U.S.'s commitment and relationship with the 1540 Committee, which is supposed to oversee biological, chemical, and nuclear activities. So without going into a whole lot more, you can certainly read the article if you wish. So what I'm trying to say here is that the U.S. has a problem with being truthful and being diligent in terms of their responsibilities under international treaties, whether these treaties are human rights treaties or whether they're weapons treaties. Okay? So this sort of, creates a problem for people like us. So I if there aren't any other questions at the time, I can go into what I think some other options are for us that may even work better than relying on Nils Melzer to do this investigation. So should I proceed, or does anybody have any questions at this point in time, or what?
Okay, I'm not seeing any, Janet. Go right ahead. I'm not seeing any, Janet. Go right ahead.
Okay. All right. Right. Okay. So there's another mechanism under the United Nations to address torture. The Special Rapporteur's office exists apart from this other mechanism, and that is the Convention Against Torture. The Convention Against Torture does is to do a cyclical review of the members of the convention, of their behaviors surrounding torture. So they have a bunch of countries that have signed on. I think it's over 165 now. So every few years, a country will come up for review, and their record will be reviewed. Now, there are certain entities that have the ability to engage member countries, but there are also NGOs. Frank has an NGO. I have an NGO. There are other NGOs in the targeted community. And all of us have the right and the ability let's say the U.S., if you're in the U.S., when the U.S. comes up for review, we have every ability, right to engage with the convention. We can file documents, and we can participate, and we can let our voices be heard. Now, is this going to resolve everything right away? I mean, I don't know. It seems like there's a lot of molasses right now, and trying to get stuff done, trying to get stuff accomplished for this community is really like moving through molasses. But this would be a way to force the Convention Against Torture to acknowledge what is happening to people within that country called the United States of America, the leader of the free world. So,
okay, I have a question from the chat. If you go to another country and you are assaulted there, is the other country going to defend you against these attacks? I happen to know one country that will, and I believe that's Poland.
Oh, that's wonderful if Poland will.
Well,
man,
Poland,
I'm packing my bags. I'm on my way there.
I don't know what they can do, but they have acknowledged the fact.
Okay, I don't know anything about that, Frank. I have no information about that. I would sure love it if you could send me some information. What we've seen, there are a number of individuals, I'm certainly not the only one, who have gone to other countries trying to see, first of all, if the attacks will diminish, if we can get help from the authorities, and I am at this point unaware of this being successful for anyone. So if there is a country that is acknowledging this and will attempt to do something, then we'd sure love to know about it. I think all of us would love to know about it.
All right. I'll be back in like 2 minutes. I'm just going to grab another cup of coffee. You're going to be all set, Janet. I'm sure you have a topic. Unfortunately, we don't have any people that would like to ask a question at this point in time. Now, as a matter of fact, we do. Anonymous has a question.
Oh, okay, good.
Go ahead, Anonymous. Okay, I'm assuming that.
Hello?
Yeah, Anonymous, sign in to the Q&A again. Okay, I guess Anonymous changed their mind.
Okay, well, I'll just talk for a couple of minutes then while you go to get the coffee.
All right.
I want to stress, okay, is that all
I
right?
will be brief. I'll be right back.
Okay, great. There is, people are discussing, of course, a lot what our options are. I personally believe very strongly that the U.S. is becoming more and more dangerous for people like us. And a while ago, I was in touch with a fellow who had just bought a big chunk of land in Quintana Roo, which is a state in Mexico, and was planning on establishing a community there. And I do believe that given the sorts of technologies that are extant in the U.S. and less sophisticated in the third world, I do think that getting out of the U.S. and into less developed and populated areas would be a good idea for everyone. So, I've said that before. I just wanted to reiterate it. So I don't think I have no way of knowing if anybody is trying to ask questions or not. My assessment of the danger involved in the U.S. now is less informed by their policy on directed energy weapons. I would say it's more informed and focused on the biological weapons issue. And I do believe very, very strongly that as far as this questionable pandemic goes, we ain't seen nothing yet. So I, of course, feel that it's my obligation to let people know that the biological weapons agenda in the U.S. is extremely well cemented and protected. And writing articles, trying to contact other groups about this, is kind of what I'm doing now on a daily basis. I've been for some time. I don't know what the future holds for us, and I would like to see as many people get clear of the danger as possible. Frank, are you back? Not yet. Well, okay, I'll talk a little more about that. I have a contract now. I submitted a book about this pandemic and where this appears to be going and where the exact dangers, I think, lie to try and day. It was accepted for publication. I was informed that it would be coming out around December. I'm now being informed that it'll be coming out around March. I have no way to impact those decisions, but that is what I found. Hello, Frank. Are you back?
Yes, I am. I just got back.
Okay, good. Well, I've kind of talked myself a little bit of space. Okay.
We have Denver, Colorado, with a question. Okay.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, hi. Talk a little louder,
Hi.
please.
Okay, I just wanted to thank Janet Phelan for her courage because it's not easy to step out with the truth. Because in this day and age, when you do that, you're not at all popular. And you're going to meet with some resistance. Yeah, right? I'm telling you. And you're going to meet with some resistance, and you're going to meet with some slander, especially the closer you get. What's the old saying? The closer you are over the target, the more flack you're going to get. So I just wanted to quickly commend you, and thank you too, Frank. Thank you for having her on, because the same thing applies to you. You're hosting somebody. You're putting yourself in a situation in the name of truth, in the name of integrity. So my hat's off to you, sir. And again, just thank you so much to Janet Phelan for her heart and her courage. So
thank you very much, Denver.
Thank you, Denver. I appreciate this.
We needed to hear that. Okay, next.
God bless you both.
Oh,
God bless you too. Stay safe.
Now.
Okay, next question we have from Lori. Go ahead, Lori.
Hi, Janet. I agree with a lot of things that I've briefly read. I haven't read all of your work, but just briefly reading some of your opinions and your writings, I agree with much of what you say. Concerning the UN, however, to be honest with you, I don't agree, but I understand why you made the effort, and I appreciate that you made the effort. But at the same time, I wondered if you were aware of the relationship between the UN and the World Health Organization and the policies of the and the policies of the World Health Organization, and the fact that Obamacare, which is currently, I guess it's called the CARES Act now, but it was instituted during Obama's administration, that is what made this all very prevalent for many of the TIs under that administration. There's policies within I'm going to call it Obamacare because I can never remember I know it's the wrong term, it's the CARES Act, but the Obamacare has provisions in it for doing human research to come up with supposed ideas for curing the population. But it's in line with WHO guidance, and it was modeled on the Netherlands. I don't know if you're aware of that or not. The Netherlands has a horrific policy, and they are a member of the Human Rights Commission, and their policy was to allow adults to commit suicide and parents to kill their children if they are born with spinal bifida or if they are born with Down syndrome. They have up to a year after birth to exterminate their child. That just got resolved so that they can do it up to 12 years of age, and they also allow 16 and 17-year-olds to make the decision of suicide in the case of what someone like a doctor deems is an incurable disease. It's done under the guise of preventing suffering, but out of, I think there was over 6,000 people who were exterminated in the Netherlands, where their health plan is what Obamacare was based upon. They allowed, it was a phenomenal, I think it was like, I can't remember the percent, but it was close to, the number was in the thousands of psychiatric patients that they allowed to be terminated, who could not make a choice for themselves rationally, and had people that oversaw them make that choice for them. This extends from the UN's policy through the World Health Organization's efforts to control population, in my belief. I mean, I could be wrong, but it seems to me that what they're doing is they're looking for the means to create a population that is overwhelmingly healthy, not realizing that those that are less fortunate in their health serve as an example and a learning experience for others to provide compassion to. It's part of life, not everyone is born perfect. And so I just wonder, when you went to the UN, do you realize any of this? That they support
Well, of course I did. Of course I did.
Obamacare supports surveillance of patients that are deemed psychiatric?
Okay, let me say a couple of things here. First of all, I'm really, really glad you brought this all up. I am very aware of the prevalence of these euthanasia laws, which are being passed worldwide and also being passed now in a number of states in the U.S. I believe Oregon, California, Washington, Vermont. I think there's a number of others as well. And these are all, yeah, these are all indicative of well, I mean, they're actually redolent of the T4 extermination programs that were launched by Adolf Hitler. A lot of people don't know that Hitler's original first extermination policies were not directed at Jews, gypsies, homosexuals. They were directed at the elderly and disabled. The useless
and let me
eaters
clarify
society.
something for those who don't know. Hitler was a member of the Nazi Party, which is the National Socialist Party of Germany. Just so that's very clear. They were the Socialist Party that came to power in Germany. And he got elected president of it.
Well, right. He was actually pretty much the originator of that effort. As far as the UN goes, I have no illusions about the UN. What I'm trying to do, when I went to the UN and presented as an NGO and to the Biological Weapons Convention and presented the evidence that the U.S. was violating the Biological Weapons Convention, I didn't have any illusions that the UN was going to go, oh my gosh, we got to do something about this. In fact, I was treated actually. So that's such a long story here. We'll just say that the press gallery was full at the day that the NGOs made their presentations. The only coverage that I got for this presentation, and it was beautiful coverage, was by TASS. I was subsequently cornered by their reporter that's covering the UN, and I got a huge story in the largest Russian newspaper that is published in Russia. So my intent on going to the BWC was not that, oh my gosh, the UN is going to just jump all over this, but I had felt that there were countries that were not really aware. Generally, smaller third world countries were not totally aware of all this, and that it would be possible to inform some of those countries as well as possible to get some press coverage. So, where there is an opportunity to affect public perception, whether it's at the United Nations, whether it's on the radio, whether it's in writing, I try to rise to that opportunity. So that's why I went. It wasn't because, oh, good golly gee whiz, the UN is so special. I don't really think they are. I think there's a lot of stuff we don't know that's coming to light about what the real intentionality is with not only the UN, but also, of course, with the U.S. So I hope that answers your question, Lori. And I really want to thank you again for bringing this all up, because this whole assisted suicide thing is really important. People need to know about this.
Right. And if you're not capable of making a decision regarding your health, because if you have a mental illness, sometimes you're not capable of making a decision. That's kind of the implication. other people can be designated to make a decision for you. And that is what healthcare is going to come to. In our country, it's come to that in the Netherlands. And I don't think that Obamacare has different regulations on whether you should receive curative care or palliative care or hospice. And that means palliative care means they might give you, like opioids or something, if you've got pain, but they're not going to give you anything to make you better. In fact, some of the drugs that are given to people who they deem have a mental health issue are not to cure you, but to make you unable to react and to slow down aggressive tendencies and to make you incapable and easier to control. And they know that these drugs shorten the lifespan, and they do this without care because people who are in that condition are considered incurable and are a detriment to society in their opinion. And it stops people from looking for a cause of a disease, which could be physical in the body, that is not addressed because the mandate is you don't get curative care, you get palliative care. So if you have diabetes and you happen to go off crazy somewheres, you might just end up on a list. And it just, like when I think of going to the UN, I kind of feel like the UN and WHO are responsible for Obamacare. And Obamacare, like all you got to know is like Obama aspirations after he got out of office, he was quoted as saying is someday he wanted to be president of the UN.
I'd like to interject that Obamacare was also in part modeled after the Massachusetts healthcare system. And
yes.
My other insert here has escaped me. But go ahead, Laura. You're doing a good job.
Well, I
You're
sent
doing
you
a great job. Thank you.
I sent you 3 or 4 different emails, Frank, with links that I found, and I inserted my opinion, but, the links were more important than what my opinion was. I think everyone who reads those things could come to the same conclusion, but people aren't aware that these things are ongoing. As far as human rights experimentation, there's another thing that I found, and I posted links in the chat concerning human research, and it's, experiments on humans. If you go to the Department of, or the Office of Human Health Services, hss.gov, you can find out that they have mandates concerning human research. And I think that efforts into investigating if our rights were violated in accordance to their own guidelines might be, might serve as a better use, of our resources. And someone like you who is literate and capable of writing letters and has been with, you have knowledge of the whole thing that's going on. I would love to see you take a look at that and kind of be able to address it towards them in your professional manner rather than going to a, I know that you want to bring awareness to it with the UN, but it's almost like giving an arsonist matches, but to me, to go to the UN.
Yes. The UN actually came to us. Nils Melzer is the one in 2018, believe it or not, submitted the questionnaires. And then in 2019 submitted for us the psychological aspects of torture or the psychology of torture. And we also filled these out, and certain individuals were supposed to make sure they were placed on the UN website, and they were not. So promises were broken there. But I just wanted to interject that in Hawaii, they have something called SARGO. It's short for sarcophagus, and it is a suicide coffin. It looks like something out of the space age, and you get inside of it, and there's, whatever music you want playing and whatever videos you want to see, and I think that you are actually killed by lethal injection very slowly. But that's available in Hawaii. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Okay.
I did see that actually. Yeah.
It's unbelievable. But
Good,
can you imagine being someone who's 11 who maybe got diagnosed with cancer and they decided to treat you with chemotherapy, and so the effects of all those chemicals in your body have caused your body to be unable to heal itself, and then have the nice doctor give you the little shot. Maybe they let you play a video game in a sarcophagus machine in the Netherlands, and you get to die because you're a burden on the healthcare system and profits. To me, Massachusetts, I sent you a link on this, Frank. Massachusetts is questioning what to do with people who are overburdening the healthcare system. So Massachusetts is well on their way to looking at what the Netherlands is doing to people who are terminally ill, maybe old,
Very, the Asian culture used to have enormous respect for their elders. Their elders were taken care of. They were kept. They were food, whatever they needed, until they were very frail and died. And unfortunately, that has been lost. And a picture of that is looking at an Asian home, and you look at the top floor, that would be the elders' floor. And it's a shame to see that all that has gone away, and we're now to the point where we have to question what to do with people who have served their country in wars and have been injured early on in life, probably at age 19 or 20, and now they are looked on as a burden. Well, I think that any veteran who comes home from war should be given a new home, a new car, and a life without taxes and a paycheck. That's what I think. And I think the elderly took care of us. We have to take care of them in the right fashion. Not killing them off, but helping them with the best medical care that we have. Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Frank. I want to point out one other aspect of this, because it's not only euthanasia laws that are of concern here and that seem to manifest this cruel and unusually callous regard for the elderly. There's also, of course, the state guardianship programs, which are essentially run through the state superior courts. So under guardianship, if there are allegations, these allegations are often not proven. if there are allegations made that a person is lacking capacity, let's say, the allegation is that they're getting confused, older, whatever, can and will appoint that person a guardian. And that guardian holds the power of life and death over the individual. Basically, also often is appointed to manage the older person's assets. So you clearly have a situation here where there might be a conflict of interest. You have the person's bank accounts. Maybe you want them. Okay? So there are cases after cases after cases that are getting covered now, and finally now getting some coverage in mainstream media, where guardians have simply offed their wards and stolen their money. And getting prosecutions when this happens is almost as difficult as getting a police officer prosecuted for itchy trigger finger. These prosecutions almost never happen. So we have multiple processes right now where elderly people can be escorted off the planet, whether they want to be or not.
Right, and I'd like to add that the surveillance that is happening in this country serves to help the government see people on the street that are limping, see people sitting on a park bench shaking, see the homeless, see the people they have to do something about. Mr. Obama should be ashamed of himself for ever even thinking about supporting the Brain Initiative, about supporting all of his crazy ideas. And I'm sorry, but I think he will go down in history as the worst president we have ever had.
It's amazing to me how many people still just adore Obama. I mean, there are so many Democrats who really think, oh, this was the best president we ever had. And one thing I do want to say about Obama is he had his act down. He had a lot of panache, a lot of sort of glitter and glam around him. But if you start looking at what he really did, it becomes horrific.
He was groomed.
I think the word you're struggling for is charismatic, which he is.
Oh, yeah.
And that is a notorious, or I don't know if notorious is the right word, sign of someone who is either sociopathic or psychopathic and has a narcissistic disorder. Many politicians are, and it's the ones who are the worst are very difficult to detect. And Obama falls into that category. He's good. I mean, he's got it down to a science.
Oh, isn't he? He's good. Yeah, gotcha. Yeah.
Okay, we have Vicky. I wish I could put you guys together. I'm not sure that I can do that. But why don't you unmute?
I'm going to run.
Go ahead.
going to run into the kitchen for a minute. I'll be away for about 60 seconds. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that we have run amok with the EU coalition. They're not providing any facts that support the fact that they communicate with Mr. Melzer. And they have made some statements that, from what I have seen in terms of paperwork, are not true. So that's another issue. I'm sure that they'll come across with some proof of what they are doing and proof of what they have said that they have done. And that's something that we are most interested in hearing. And when I say we, I am talking about the entire targeted community, which is thousands of people. Thousands of people depending upon an organization. Thousands of people.
I think it's important to the entire population of the United States. All that has to happen to you is a good fall on the ice and bump your head. You know?
That's it.
You might. That's all there is between you and these kinds of policies. You know, maybe someone in your family dies that you can't quite get over, and you get depressed, and you go seek help because you want to be able to work, of course, and you go on psychiatric drugs to cheer up artificially. That's all it takes, because you've used a psychiatric drug, you're on the list. So it's not just targeted individuals.
Right.
That's right.
Okay, we have Vicky, who would like to ask a question. Go ahead.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure I have problems on my end with the mics and everything. Okay, Janet was talking earlier, and I missed a little bit of it, something about March. Are you talking about a possible bioweapons release in America? A potential? Is that what you were addressing?
When I was talking about March, I was talking about Meltzer's report.
Okay, that's what I was afraid of. Okay, I misunderstood. I wanted to clarify that. I missed a little bit of it. Okay, and also, I want to get out of fighting. I just wanted some straight answers and some honesty. This has been really devastating. Anyway, somebody put a link and it says, it's from European Coalition. Nils Melzer, the Special Rapporteur on Torture, was allowed by the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres to include cyber torture victims in his mandate to end this kind of torture in 2 years, at least 4 at the most. Does anybody know anything more about that? And were the victims' testimonies actually posted on the UN's website like they said they were?
A few of them were.
Okay. So
the NGOs statements were published. If they're, I think one of the problems that some of the NGOs ran into is they bundled reports and didn't put in a cover report. The cover report would be posted, but in some cases NGOs didn't do that. So the NGO statements got published, and a very, very few of the individual reports were published on the UN website.
But at least a few were. And do you know anything about that it actually is included in a special mandate to end this kind of torture in 2 years, 4 years?
We have no communications.
I'm just
from
saying,
the European. Excuse me, but please don't do that.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
We have no communications from the European Union coalition admitting that they've had. Actually, there was a communication that came through today, which I posted on my Facebook page, from Liliana, saying, of course, we have no communications or correspondence. There's been no correspondence. She said that. And then she actually went ahead and attacked me for even suggesting there was correspondence. I don't know what's going on there. But as long as we're being told this happened, that happened, but there's no proof being supplied whatsoever. So I would take all of this with a grain of salt. Okay, go ahead, please. I'm sorry.
Okay, no, I didn't mean to interrupt you. This is just really frustrating. I mean, in my defense, I'm getting devoured alive with that damn thing. And it's hard to act like you're not. I mean, it's a bad situation I'm in. That machine, that DW, literally pounds me. I mean, it's hard to explain to people I'm so dysfunctional. I have to keep explaining to my father. I don't explain. I just talk fast, and he complains. And that's the reason why it happens. No, somebody had posted a link to the EU Coalition's website. I just looked at it. And they just have a statement saying Nils Melzer, what I read. And I was just wondering if there was any confirmation on that, if it's true, if anything knows anything about it. That's all. They posted the link, and I went and looked at it. It's there.
Okay, they posted a link. They posted a link to where the UN confirmed this?
No, earlier while you were talking, somebody in the chat posted a link to the EU Coalition Task Force's Facebook page. And here it is, Tortured in Canada. Magnus site is calling Janet Yell journalism and other things, and they clicked the link. And in that link, there's a message there, and that's where it's contained that Nils Melzer, what I read you, it's contained in that. It's a pretty recent post. That's why I asked if anybody knew anything about that part of it, because in that post they state, if you want to look at it, you can, that he is going to address it in 2 or 4 years.
I'm at this point having. Sorry, go ahead. They have the what?
Well, I'm saying I didn't know. I was just wondering if anybody knew if there was anything to those claims.
As long as the task force refuses to publish any correspondence, given that many of the statements they have made to the targeted community have turned out to be suspect, I would consider all of their statements to be suspect at this point in time until we can see some evidence. And as Liliana stated today in her all capital letters posts, of course there's no correspondence. How dare you even suggest there is, Janet? So who the heck knows?
What we will have to do in the interim period is just hope that they are doing the right thing. And to put all your faith in that would be ludicrous. You have to do your own work with groups like ours, like Ella's, work, learn, so that we are all on the same page. I once said that I would like to be in such contact that when a hair hits the floor in California, we know about it in Massachusetts. And that's the way it should be. All of the targets should communicate all the time. It should be a regular, everyday thing to communicate anything new that you have heard with everyone else. And naturally, that's why we have these conference calls, and we try to shed light on things that are in the dark, and we expose disinformation, and we support true information, which is supported by documentation, by scientists, by people in the higher-ups. Go ahead, Janet. I understand you wanted to speak.
No, it wasn't me. I think it was Vicky who was trying to speak.
Okay,
I started to, but I realized I was interrupting, so I stopped. No, I'm trying to explain. This is why it happens. I've even had problems at work from it. I have a little job I'm barely holding on to on the phone, and I get tortured so much. My focus, the concentration, is timing is off. I don't mean to interrupt, but it happens. I talk fast. It drives my father crazy. So what am I going to tell him? Dad, I'm being tortured. I'm being devoured alive here. It causes a lot of problems. No, this is coming from a TI. I've been being devoured alive and terrorized and tortured for years. You walk into these groups, you have such high expectations. Hey, there's somebody that's actively involved, organized, seems to be getting somewhere, may have information on shielding. And then you sit and you watch the allegations fly. You wonder if you signed up with Satan himself. This is a problem. You're trying to figure out who. You don't want to invest time and money in Satan himself. You want to go with somebody credible. Does that make sense? Do you understand where I'm coming from? Does that make sense? Because I don't know enough about this technology to do much. I don't have the power to get anywhere. You're the only organizations that seem large enough to put up a fight that seem to be getting anywhere. And then you hear all these allegations, and you just sit there, and you can't verify much of it, and you're sitting there. Somebody's lying. I'm not sure what's going on here, but this is not good.
No,
and you really
not.
don't want. And you don't want to waste your time and money. They get called perps. fraudsters, hucksters, and you really don't want to waste time and money on Satan himself. It just puts the TIs in a very bad situation.
Okay,
it's very concerning.
We have the beginning of open unity in the community, and that's between Midge Mathis, Ella Free, Skizit Powers, Neil, myself, and we are going to be as transparent as can be. And I support Neil, I support I support Ella, I support Midge, and I support the targeted community as a whole, as do we all. And I mean, Ella makes referrals to me, people I talk to. If there's somebody out in Oregon, I'm going to send them to Ella. And one person who has fallen out of unity is Mr. Derek Robinson. He refuses to communicate in such a way that you would think he was being open. So we demand transparency, and that's all.
Yeah, my father's been ill, and I was at his house. He lives about 10 minutes from me. So I was stuck on this little tablet, and my father is ill. I came home today. I was supposed to work, but I work and that's not your problem. We ran out of sample on the computer. I work from home. Anyway, I just clicked on Derek's call a couple days ago just to see what was going on. And I'm on a tablet over there I'm not accustomed to, and it doesn't have a keyboard. And I saw Liliana DeLuca's name, as one of the people participating, so I tapped in. And I didn't hear all of it, but they're presenting the situation as there is some hope. The UN's addressing it. I didn't get I didn't stay on long. I didn't get the particulars, and I could see in the comments section 2 months ago, I'm not holding my breath. But he is apparently still presenting as if they're still working on it. That's all I can say. And it's just so devastating to have your hopes filled up and crushed when you're so desperate. Does that make sense? And, it's one thing to have tried and failed, but if you lie and set somebody up, that's beyond vicious. Okay, I'm done.
Okay, thanks, Vicki. As usual, you add a lot, and you bring a lot with you here. And I'm getting a lot of questions in the chat. The UN is very important because I'll give you one example. We had a human rights issue in Kuwait. There was a human slavery issue, and they were on it. They had planes there in no time, and they were all over that. They found a woman from the Philippines in a freezer. I mean, just frozen solid. And they were getting emails, advertising on a website, getting emails from females from the Philippines to go to Kuwait for a job. But it was in fact slavery, and worse. But the UN has its place, but they are not looking at this because they are not. We think they are looking at it on the inside because they have asked us for questionnaires, they have asked us for submissions, so they are looking at it, but they're looking at it on the inside. And we're not going to know about it until they present it, period. And that's it, As far as I know.
Who's looking at what on the inside?
The UN is looking at, I believe, cyber torture on the inside, obviously, because of prior reports and whatnot that we've heard. But as far as coming out this October, they did not. So they may come out with something later on, early next year. But I don't know. As far as I know, I'm just going to say I'm just going to abstain from the whole thing. How's that?
Well, all I know is what we were told what happened, what didn't happen, and then what Meltzer's office explained in response to my email. I certainly hope you're right, Frank, and I certainly hope they pick this up soon because the community desperately needs their help.
Okay, you have a question from Lonnie. Go ahead, Lonnie. You're unmuted.
I'm sorry. I didn't know I was asking a question. I have a comment. You were talking about something. I'm just. Why would we expect instantaneous help when they haven't even really addressed organ harvesting in China? That's horrendous, and it's been going on for 20 years, as far as I know. That I don't understand. Okay. Second thing is, go ahead.
Well,
go on.
China is in a position where they don't have to listen to anybody.
Uh-huh.
So they're playing the U.S. role, I think.
Okay. I think you're right. They have a huge control over the UN. Not only the UN, but all around the world. I did hear a very quick news report on the radio this morning that I was going to mention that somebody else might know about. But I understand that there were some Chinese officials or something here in this country who were arrested for surveilling and harassing Chinese nationals who are here on school or working or whatever. And that's been going on for a long time. Josh Phillips of the Epoch Times is the one who broke that story. I believe it was in New York about a long time ago, 10, 15 years ago, as a young reporter. He has a newscast. I don't know whether he's addressing this or not, but he has a newscast called, what is it called again? I can't remember. Anyway, he's with the Epoch Times, and he does this on every day. He said every weekday he's got something going. But he's the one reporter who broke that news a long time ago, surprising him and a lot of people. But they have arrested somebody, apparently, in the last couple of days. So that's good news, I think. And I am very appreciative of all the pressure that's being put on China by this administration, which has been neglected for 30 years. Nobody has done anything. We've just enjoyed our lack of jobs and industries making a ton of money because they're doing it over there, that sort of thing. So I had my doubts about the UN until China loses some control. And when it loses control, technologically especially, in the world. So Frank, I did want to say this. I was on Derek's call last night, and he did say that when he talked to the other moderators, he offered to check out the situation that you were complaining about. I guess it was Saddam you were complaining about. But he said he hadn't noticed any problems, but he offered to check it out, and he said they didn't want that. They wanted the moderators wanted him to immediately join forces with them.
No,
So
no. What we wanted was for him to ban this criminal from his call, and he will not do that.
Well, that was because he hasn't had any trouble with him.
Oh.
He was waiting to have trouble.
This person is a criminal with a record as long as a toilet paper, okay? And he has been he has some women so scared that they are taking out restraining orders, and there are certain moves that are being made by the community leaders. And this man is dangerous. Okay? That's what I will say.
Ella mentioned something about in the 1990s he had a record. But, you know, I've heard people over the years come on the call and tell us that they were in prison when something was going on. So I don't know what kind of record anybody has, really. I haven't been threatened by the guy, so I don't know, you know, if somebody's been threatened.
This is just like the targeted situation. You don't have it, so you're not going to worry about it. Well, see, the community leaders have to worry about it because we're worried about you. And that's what it amounts to. And he would not forbid this gentleman, and I use the term very loosely, from his call. And that's got to happen because he's got to be thrown out of the community. He tore up Neil's call, or Skizzet's call, again Sunday evening. So
this Sunday, last week,
it's got to stop.
Somebody did. It was messing up. I know. I remember. I was on that call too.
You're even trying to cover for this man yourself.
No, I'm not.
Well, he's going to be
That's
kicked.
not true, Frank. Don't say that. You know better than that.
Well,
I don't like the guy anyway. I never did like the guy. He's too loud. He's way too loud. He overpowers, and he likes to come on and accuse people. He accused Matthew. Is what made Ella mad was that he accused Matthew of doing some things simply because where he works. That's stupid.
He has no right.
Narrow.
He has no right. He has no authority. He has no badge. He has nothing.
But don't tell me I'm defending the guy. All I'm doing is telling you what Derek said. Derek wanted to see it for himself. And he has a call, and he's had one for as long as I can remember. And I can't remember when people weren't trying to demoderate Derek. And that's what I'm tired of, too. And also, I want to say one more thing. Long time ago, somebody who became a moderator asked me, because I'd been on the calls a long time, what do you think about me being a moderator? My answer was this: because you're a moderator does not make you a leader. You may be perceived as a leader, but leaders are chosen by the majority of people, as far as I'm concerned. And I think that's happened a lot. Now, the people you've talked about are leaders because you've done things. You and I don't know who all you've mentioned, but we've got some people who do lead, and I appreciate that. But I think that to legislate and to get together and demand, you know, that everybody steps to the same high step is not right. Let Derek find it out himself. Why not let him find out? He would have. That's all.
Would you like this gentleman calling your work, ma'am?
Of course not, Frank. Don't make that.
That's all.
That has nothing.
Okay. Well,
yeah, that's all. Good night.
Good night. Okay. A.
Hi.
What's your question?
Yeah, so I dropped in this call and I heard people talking about the United Nations. And since the United Nations is a very last resort to solve domestic problems that should be solved domestically, I'm wondering what the plan is for groups like Targeted Justice, to which I belong, and all the targeted groups. I'm just wondering what the plan is, because I'm an international type of person. I have an international family, so I'm taking my stuff to the UN for that reason. But I want to know, is there going to be any legal assistance to get our cases before a federal court or heard even at our local levels? Is there going to be that type of support here in this country, the United States, for many of these groups?
We're getting a little off topic, but My two organizations are not interested in pursuing that type of avenue. That would be targeted justice. And Midge Mathis has actually left targeted justice. And she was the cornerstone.
Okay.
And she is a very close friend.
So there's not going to be any structured legal support in the United States for targeted individuals.
I did not say that. We have a number of different. One, I can say Ella has contact with an attorney he is actually targeted, and he is friends with a woman who I believe is another target, and they're both attorneys. So something may come of that. But when you have attorneys working a case, please come up with who you're going to sue. Okay? That's what we have to do. You have to. I keep saying this.
That wasn't my question. That wasn't my question. It was in the support
There are
structure,
people pursuing legal things. They're
doing that independently.
Right. This is about Janet Phelan tonight, and we've gotten way off topic.
Okay.
I should have said that to Lonnie before she got too far into her question. But yes, there is a legal movement, if that's what you're interested in. I'm interested in ending the program. That's what I'm interested in. That's my main interest. Ending the program. I
just didn't understand what the approach is besides the coffee shop meets and stuff like that. I'm just.
Well, we've done a lot more than coffee shop meets, ma'am. Okay? A lot more. But if you have any questions about the UN, this would be a great time to ask Janet because she's very well informed.
About which, I mean, I have a couple questions, but
Go right ahead.
So I'm one of the people who wrote in last year about torture, but I already had, I have a history in the Northeast of having been a rights activist for a long time. I'm in my 40s, so I mean, when I was 19, I met with a Supreme Court attorney about this stuff here in Pennsylvania. So I understood what the process was, but to be at the UN and for them to actually take on cyber torture, I mean, we're talking about a really long haul of legislation, and it's intertwined with our current shipping, supply chain, security, and everything else. So, I mean, we're going to be waiting for a while for that to trickle down into national and domestic law. So, I mean, aside from that, there's a small percentage of cases that they even address or ask for a reply from, and the process on that is almost 2 years long if it actually becomes a case. I saw a Brazilian TI who seemed to have some success, but I mean, what is the percentage of this? Because it's a lot of work, and I've already spent 3 years of my life documenting this stuff, but I didn't want to, but I knew I was going to have to at some point. I waited a long time.
Okay, I'm going to direct that right to Janet.
I'm sorry, would you summarize that for me so I understand in a nutshell what the question is?
Okay, so the simplicity of it is that someone like me who's already had a history at working, I also worked in D.C. with and around Supreme Court attorneys and other people who are aware of my situation here in Pennsylvania since I was 19. So I've waited a long time, and I expect to wait a long time, but other people are not able to tolerate being tortured for as long as I have. And even the requirements of that alone, torture at the UN, is very minimal amount of complaint letters that they actually address, that they pick out of their pile.
That's right. You're correct. Right.
It's like they have 190 countries, and they might pick 2 a day out of 10 that they receive, and then the countries don't respond. So, I mean, how long? I can't even. I haven't asked anybody. How long is this process of having new legislation trickle down from the international community into individual countries?
Well, we have a political problem here. And part of the problem is that the U.S. is actually becoming more and more a rogue state. And we have a community of nations that are attempting to prop up the rogue state's public perception. And this is one of the reasons why I absolutely believe why human rights agencies and organizations aren't helping us. This is a very powerful rogue state. This could be considered the most powerful rogue state on the entire planet that has enormous, shall we say, abilities to make sure that they get what they want. For example, there was a lot of reporting after Ecuador betrayed Julian Assange and manipulated his arrest. There were reports that Ecuador had just gotten this, big loan from the IMF and other incentives. So this rogue state can lean on just about everybody to get done what they want to get done. So, I cannot speak without seeing any communications, and the European Coalition is, refusing, saying there are no communications with Nils Melzer now. How would I know what his intentions were or what they are, or if somebody, threatened his funding? Who knows? But when one is specifically being abused by the most powerful nation in the world, it becomes a matter of power politics not to allow our situations to be validated, and we become political problems. Particularly, the louder we get, the more attention we get, the greater problem we become. So, maybe that's a sort of a dismal perspective, but I actually think that Melzer did us a wonderful service by simply mentioning us in that report. And I'm hoping that we can build on that and get more attention, because public perception and public attention right now is really important, because we've already seen we're not getting the response we need from government. We're not getting the response we need from the UN, and we simply need to get the public on our side. So that's the way I see it.
Okay. I wasn't sure because, yeah, just everything seems like it's teetering on collapse. And I mean, aside from meeting and doing self-care, it's getting kind of hopeless in a sense. Yeah. Okay, thank you. I think you answered my question. Yeah.
Thank you, A. That was very, very good. Okay, next we have Alex. Go ahead, Alex.
Okay. Hi. 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 Hello?
Hi.
Hi. I have a lot of questions to ask, but I kind of want to...
Hello.
That's Constance.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. The phone's, Okay, so what I'm
Hi.
thinking... Hi. Is I hear what everybody is saying, and everybody's looking, and everybody's torture is horrible. I can definitely understand that, and I know that it's a very slow process. But I'm hearing that what about the Freedom Act? And they had something, and it's been a while ago. Oh God, come on, get it together. The watch list, and where something was being done concerning the people that were on the watch list. Have you heard anything about that anymore?
Okay. So what happened? Well, there were a couple of efforts. We talked about the CARE, the Muslim organization that was suing the U.S. government, the DOJ, for putting Muslims on the terrorist watch list. And right at the time that COVID had struck, there had been some filings in that court case. And I am unaware that the issue has been resolved. From what I can see, AG Barr has launched what he's calling a new protective internal mechanisms, but they're all internal. So there's no oversight. So the FBI is going to oversee the FBI so that the FBI doesn't keep lying to the FBI and to FISA. Okay? That's bullshit. This is not, keep it all in house. We'll just create another good old boy club. This is not adequate protection. Go ahead.
Well, from what I have done some research, and it's been going on since 1940, maybe MK Ultra and everything. So it's been going on for decades, and nothing is being done about it. And here it is, 2000, and there's still people being tortured. And I don't know exactly which way to go. Is there another route, another direction we can take, or is there any more information that maybe you can give me as well as other people on which way to go with this at this point? Because waiting
I think we're all
no
feeling
longer
that.
an option.
I think we're all feeling that. And, the good news, I think, is that this is beginning under, somewhat specialized sort of coverage. This is beginning to get more attention. 5 years ago, there weren't articles like almost every day about the FISA court. 5 years ago, there weren't people, coming forward saying, like this Nation reporter named Dave Lindorf wrote an article that was published in the Nation, which is a huge national magazine, about how he got put on the watch list. Now, admittedly, he did not say, I'm being tortured with electronic weapons or anything, but he certainly, his article shone some light on this absolutely inappropriate and bizarre placement of ordinary citizens on a watch list. Now, we know that watch list entails a lot more than being patted down in the airport. Okay, but we are making progress in terms of public recognition.
Yes, public recognition is very important. I know Ella has done it, And Frank, oh my God, he is so dedicated to it. I just love him to death. So this is a crime that no matter how much college education you got, how many governments you worked in, how many agencies you've been in, whether or not you are a whistleblower or not, this can happen to anybody at any age. And that is important, that I think that everybody should realize that this is not something you did. This is all something that has been done to you, and it could have been before you were a whistleblower. That's just my own opinion. I'm going to mute, and I'll take the rest, and I'll listen. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. I think they were very wise and very astute.
Okay, next, thank you, Constance. Next we have Richard from North Carolina.
Hi, Richard.
Hi, guys. I just wanted to say, Miss Janet, being a professional yourself, a journalist, and knowing the news and knowing the news organizations that we've all had to deal with for the last years, which would be, in your opinion, the best way to try to contact and reach and open the eyes of some of these news teams, and which one would be some of your picks to maybe get some things turned over?
Well, I actually think that this latest report by Nils Melzer was addressed that question, and did so rather brilliantly, because his report is essentially saying, why is all this torture going on all over the world, and why aren't people yelling and screaming about it? And essentially he's saying people are scared to death. He talks about fear-based, societies, and how people, the internal psychological mechanisms that people use when they're living in a fear-based society in order to protect themselves. So, we do have to understand that very likely there's a lot of people in the media who know exactly what's happening to us, and they're scared. And they're scared, apparently, that. So I'm sort of, thinking this all through. I think that people like Frank and Ella, who have radio shows and can cover this, people who are doing some writing, and there's more and more independent media that is covering this issue. I think that we have to go with what we have, and what we have are some really brave people like Frank, like Ella, who are doing everything they can, and we need to support them. The New York Times, the Washington Post, God bless them, they're scared to death. I remember after this thing happened to me, and I was, as I mentioned before, I was physically assaulted by the. I consider myself a miracle that I survived what happened. And after I survived what happened, I started contacting people that my father had known. My father had been a journalist on the national stage, and so I'm contacting his buddies at the Washington Post and at the New York Times, and I reached, actually got the attention of Bill Booth at the Washington Post for about a heartbeat. And he said, "Oh, well, fax me some documents." So I faxed him some documents. And then he blocked my fax number. So, was Bill Booth just a nasty piece of work, or was he scared to death? So, this is what we're dealing with. So we have to use who we have. And we have some writers, we have a number of people doing radio, and we are the ones we've been waiting for. That's what I'm trying to say, I think.
Well, you're absolutely right, and we have you also, and I can see an interview with you and Tucker Carlson. I know he would in fact be glad to have an interview with you and Hannity and some of the other guys. The New York Times and the other people, be assured that they may not have been the people that were blocking whatever you sent. We get blocked many, many times. And
I'm sure they were. There were other ways to contact Bill Booth, and believe me, Bill Booth didn't want to hear any more about it.
Okay, well, we have those, but we have to keep a chin up and head up, and these guys are out there wandering around. Tucker has made many statements himself, becoming a targeted person himself, having to move several different times to try to protect his family. And it's a different kind of targeting that many of us go through, but it's still targeting, and it's all still pointed in the same direction, which is to shut us down, keep us quiet, and make happen whatever they're happening. So, we have your back, and if you take a notion to make some noise in some places, let us know.
Okay.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you so much, Richard. Next we have Vicki.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. I just make sure because there's a lot of times I click on and nobody can hear me. It's just bizarre. Anyway, she's back. Bobby, I had sent Frank email. She had done what she calls a ping or something like that on the UN. And she tracks the ASNs. I mean, she's got a large site, I'll put it there, where she, and I'm not familiar enough with this. I'm looking at it. A lot of ways to track evidence if anybody wants to track it down, try to find out who's hacking your computer. And I had sent him some information. She claimed the UN was involved in our targeting, and he was trying to discuss some methods of her methodology. She claims she's been discredited, the ASNs. She said Bill Binney had outed it about the ASN, and it basically tracks who's in your computer and how it's routed and a lot of things like that. She has a lot of information on her site. I'm not sure what to make it. I'm getting hit too hard. But did you ever have a chance to look at that, Frank? Did that go back to their computers?
I have to check that out, Vicki. I am just swamped.
No, that's why I was asking. I was wondering if you had a chance to look at it. Because I don't know enough about it. I'm trying to study a little bit now. But she has a large website, and if it's true, she's got a lot of ways to track who's in your computer, how the signals are routed, and a lot of other stuff. But she was discussing Bill Binney, and he was the one who, I guess, informed the public about the ASNs being utilized. And she's claiming that there's not a lot more discussion and that her methods have been discredited by somebody. I'm not sure who. But it goes, you put all this information, and it'll track the networks and who you're connected with who and who's in your computer. And I'm saying if anyone wants to check it out, because I know evidence is a big problem. See, I'm getting hit too hard. Some days are better than others. I'm very dysfunctional. I mean, I get pounded with that damn thing literally. I could feel it pulsing through me. And I had my son here helping, and people were saying methodology wasn't good. And then Sue Maya said, don't get your son too involved. It might get him killed. So I kind of let all that drop. But I'm saying if anybody thinks it's worth it, because she did have a video about the UN.
Long period of time. That's a medical assessment.
She had a video where she had tracked the UN, and she was claiming, it's only about 5 minutes long, and she traces it and shows you how, that they're involved in our targeting. And she uses the ASN addresses, and she said Bill Binney was the one who outed that part of it. But it's not discussed enough. I'm just wondering if anybody else knows anything. Because, I mean, Stephen Sheldon is on her site. He's doing it. I saw a quote from him, and it went back to his site, his YouTube channel. But, yeah, she's got a lot of information on her site. People want to check it out. I'm going to try to start. Some days are better than others. it's hard to accept. I was very competent, very functional. I got things done. I was tough as a rock at Gibraltar. I can barely move sometimes. But if anybody wants to check it out, but she claims the UN's involved in our targeting. There was a little 5-minute video. I sent to Frank. If you didn't have time to look at it, you didn't have time. But, she's got a lot of stuff on there and a lot of ways to track evidence. And, if anybody wants to look at it. I just wonder if Frank had ever had time to look at it to see if they were really involved. Because it's about the ass ends, and you know how it goes in the TI community. Everybody gets on and harasses everybody, and you know what I'm saying. You know how that goes. But I really don't know enough about it to tell if it's an accurate methodology and the criticisms are legit. I'm going to try to take another look at it. But I was just wondering if you had time to look at it.
Okay, that's the extent of the questions right now. If you'd like to start and cover some more material, that would be great, and it's your choice.
Well, there is just one more thing I want to say in order to set the record straight, because as I'm sure some of the people on this call know, I'm being attacked left and right now for that article that I wrote on Meltzer's recent report. Particularly, concerning the fact that I included the email from Meltzer's office saying that they're not investigating cyber. And I need to set the record straight on a couple of things. And one is that Liliana is now making statements about how dare I contacted Interpol. How dare Karen Stewart, said, how dare you contact Interpol? So I just need to set the record straight here. Karen had contact with somebody who alleged to be connected, not a member of Interpol, but to be connected to the Interpol. And this person promised Karen and promised me directly that Interpol was coming. Excuse me, that Interpol was coming to investigate my situation and help me here. So when I contacted Interpol, it was because I'd been promised, nobody had shown up. I had been specifically contacted on December 27th saying we'll be there in a couple of days, no further communications. So this was about me. This was about my life, my future, and, are you even doing an investigation? Are you going to help me? So this is what this was about. So I needed to set the record straight there because, again, Liliana's got that wrong. Okay, so that's all I wanted to say. Anything else?
Okay, we've got Laurie in the queue. Okay, and I'm going to take a break for 30 seconds. I'll be right back. Go ahead, Laurie. You're live.
Janet, I just wanted to say, this is Laurie.
Hi, Laurie.
Someone posted that supposed letter. The only name I can remember is Magnus Olson and Henning White. Okay, but the link was on Twitter. They posted this letter on Twitter that all the information that was given to Derek Robinson was supposed to remain confidential, and they posted that letter on Twitter. So if that gives you indication of what you're dealing with and the mindset, Llewellyn was part of it too. Llewellyn Connor.
Liliana Connor.
Liliana Connor.
Right.
Yeah, she uses a hyphenated name, but Connor. She was on that letter too. If that gives you any indication of what you're up against, don't worry about it. I, for one, am appalled at some of what I saw on when this first started coming out that the meeting had transpired. Whatever it was, I think the 15th. When I was given links, I started doing searches for, direct energy and directed energy weapons, to see what they had because I was trying to find. And I found some letters. One of them was the guy that used to run, or still does, Targeted Justice, Christensen. And, his letter was psychotic. So this group of people, I've seen Magnus Olson's work online. Don't worry about it. What you're up against is people who are off the deep end, and they're making things up, and they're grasping at straws, and they're up to something. I'm not sure what. You have every right in the whole world to contact the UN or Interpol for whoever you want, and threats and slander and baloney that people sling about it is unwarranted, and probably, you know, if they had anything to take from them, you know, you could file a good slander lawsuit against them. Chances are they have nothing, and they're sitting in a room somewhere. I wouldn't worry about it. I appreciate the work that you've done. I don't appreciate the UN. I understand why you contacted them, you know, I do. But I don't understand why gathering people's information, their private information, was so important to a group, except to get data on people and develop their biopsychosocial models so that they could further say that people who claim to be targeted are part of a conspiracy. It made us look bad, and it never should have, you know. That's not the way we're going to resolve the issue that stands behind it. What has been done to us makes our symptoms really bad, and we need to be careful about how we speak and who we speak to. And, you know, if they are pointing the finger, you know, I think, you know, they're kind of like people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, you know. So I wouldn't worry about it.
I really appreciate that. Thank you. I have a funny story about what the UN actually did to me, and I'm going to share it here because it's apropos. The last time I went to the Biological Weapons Convention in Geneva twice in order to file documents showing that the UN was violating the treaty. And my second presentation, I think it was far more effective than my first one. I learned something from my first presentation, and I think my second one totally rocked. And that's when I was, contacted by the TASS reporter and ended up with a big feature about me and Pravda and so forth. So, sometime later, after the convention ended, I was doing a search on the convention's website, and I found where the Biological Weapons Convention had changed my designation. I had been allowed to present at the convention because I have an NGO called Ithaca. Now, this is where it gets funny. Ithaca is not an acronym, okay? It refers to the homeland of Ulysses, who had, by Ulysses by Homer, he had all these wonderful and some terrible adventures just trying to get back to where things are supposed to be. That was his homeland. He was trying to get back to Ithaca, right? So that's why we named the NGO Ithaca. Well, in their official documents, the UN changed Ithaca to an acronym, which made it look like a mental hospital. Something blah blah treatment, help. They acronymized Ithaca to make it sound like I came from a mental hospital, and they did it in their official documents.
So that's just
really. So, well, that's just malicious, devilry, right? So I was so appalled. I mean, and I contacted. There's an administrative effort, a group to kind of manage the details surrounding these biological weapons conventions meetings, and the main guy there is a guy named Daniel Feeks, who had already given me some grief while I was at the convention. So I wrote him. I said, Ed, what is this about? This is like defamation. Like, why did you do this? He said, well, we emailed this out for everybody's approval before it went. Well, I never got that. And I said, I never got that. Would you please change that? That's defamatory. And he writes back, no. So who do you think did that, huh? I think it was probably Daniel Peake.
God.
So anyway,
that was Nils, right?
Yeah?
Nils did that?
What? No. It has nothing to do with Nils. It has nothing to do with the Special Rapporteur. This is the Biological Weapons Convention.
Oh, okay. Yep. Sorry.
Yeah. So that's what they did. They tried, because I was I was very effective at that presentation. I got, within minutes after I spoke, I suddenly had a new best friend who was the head delegate from the Russian Federation, okay? So he's sitting next to me, whispering in my ear, saying how I've just done the most amazing thing, and he's so pleased, and can he introduce me to Pravda, right? I mean, and then, I had South Africa contacting me, and Iran, and it's like, I made a splash there, okay? And I was like really, really pleased. And then I find out that the UN has defamed me, probably because I was so effective. So, when you say that you don't trust the UN, I'm right there with you. Okay?
Good.
I'm just trying to use whatever is available as a possible, method to which we can get more attention to this, to several situations, including targeting, right? So.
Well, I appreciate all that you've done, and I feel for you for all that you've gone through.
Thank you.
I've gone through a lot, but not, I haven't been driven out of my country yet.
Ditto from me, Janet. You've been through a lot. Most definitely.
Yeah, well, I actually am going through a lot, and I'm trying to keep my head up and my eye on the prize. And the prize here is, I'm lucky because I have a little bit of gift, and I have a lot of training, and the training helps me to develop my gift. So, with whatever small abilities I have to report and to bring public attention to issues, I'm trying to use them, and I'm getting beaten up pretty bad. But something, I would rather live this life than live, hiding under my bed and afraid that somebody might attack me. So this is my choice. This is all of our choice, I think. Frank, right?
It is. We have to stand up for who we are and what we believe in and what is happening to us. And it's very easy for a non-target to say that you are crazy because, number one, you look the same, or let's just say you're a family member or another family member is making an observation. You look the same, you talk the same, but you act a little different. Well, maybe that's because you have two extra people riding you all day long, and it's not fun, but that's what happens. But what I'm trying to say is they can't appreciate what's going on because they don't see anything. See no evil, they can't see it, so they've never had it, so they cannot grasp.
And it's easier. Oh, I'm sorry, I interrupted. Please go ahead.
I'll finish what you were going to say. It's easier to say that you're a nut than it is to support you, and then be accused by various neighbors of the whole family being nuts. So I would stick.
It's easier. It's easier, and it's safer for them. And this is what I think Melzer was trying to stress in this latest report. It's safer. Okay. I'd like to make a very quick announcement here. As you may know, I write for Activist Post. And as you also may know, there are a lot of websites now, a lot of news agencies, people's YouTube channels. People are being attacked. Their websites are being taken down. And Activist Post has had their PayPal account frozen. They cannot get their income, and they get their income through PayPal. So I want to suggest that people who like Activist Post and like what they're doing there and would like to see them continue reporting, that they could donate through Patreon to Activist Post. I'm not getting any of this money. It goes to Activist Post so they can continue running their website. And I really would like to encourage people at this point in time to support them, because they're suddenly they can't get any of their money. And thank you. Okay.
Yeah, now I have brought up to Janet what I think. The country has fallen into a deep, deep recession, and the country was physically shut down. How many companies do you think PayPal has interactions with? From the personal level all the way up to the corporate level. All of these companies were closed down. Activist Post was not. So I think PayPal is in trouble. That's what I think. I don't want to start a run on the banks, but I think they're out of money. I think they're out of fluid assets because the country fell on its butt. And that's what I think. So I hope we don't see any more of that. Go ahead, Janet.
Well, one of the things that I communicate a lot with the editor there. I like him a great deal. I think he's actually doing one of the better jobs in terms of running a news agency and getting us information. And one of the things that we discuss a lot is censorship and how it's manifesting through Facebook. People's Facebook accounts are getting shut down. Twitter, Twitter is blocking President Trump's tweets. I mean, it's getting pretty crazy out there. And so a lot of independent journalists and so forth are being impacted financially by these Facebook, Twitter, YouTube blocks, and the fact that they actually sequestered, according to Michael, they've sequestered his funds for 180 days. So he can't even get access to his money for 6 months, and no reason was given. So, in pursuit of our support of independent media and in support of the really wonderful job that Michael Edwards is doing, I really hope that people can find it in their hearts to help out now. There's actually book burnings going on. I mean, essentially, Amazon is actually banning books. Some of these books, the ones I'm aware of, really do deal with hard to find information, controversial information, and if we don't have access to information, if we don't know what's happening in the world, then we're even more at risk for bad things happening to us. So I think it's an issue that, for me as a strong proponent of the First Amendment, it's an issue that it is of grave concern.
Sorry, yes, I agree 100%. And let me just check. And okay, Lori was the last one. Lori, if you'd like to say anything more, you're still in the queue, muted.
I didn't have anything to add except for thank you very, very much, Janet.
Well, thank you, Lori. I really appreciated all your input tonight. I think it was very, very good. Thank you.
Yeah, she has a lot of information on the tip of her tongue all the time. Very, very good, Lori.
I don't know if it's good or not.
Yeah, it is good.
Qualities.
Very good. Okay, at this time, I think it's 11:13. Janet, do you want to end the Q&A?
If there's no further questions, sure. And I want to thank everybody who participated, who listened, who commented. Thank you all very much.
My thanks goes out to you too. It's been really great. Okay. Okay, that'll relieve some confusion. Janet, if you're going to hang on here, thank you very much. You're quite welcome to. And those of you who would like to speak, you can unmute. The chat room is open. Everything is open. And open discussion, whatever you like. But it's open mic right now. Thank you so much, Janet. Oh, and call me tomorrow about your drone issue. Okay, I'm going to make a fresh pot of coffee and enjoy yourself. We have 63 people here who I'm sure have a lot to say. If you'd like any questions for Janet, I can definitely see that she gets them. And if you'd like any questions for me, I'm right here. But I'll be back in about a minute or so. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to say I was talking to a TI today, and it's kind of like he asked me a question that no one can answer. It's like, who's doing this all? And especially when you have neighbors involved, but you also have like foreign countries involved, like China, Russia, North Korea, with the electronic equipment. And it's kind of like, what I'm thinking is kind of like they want to set up American people to fight against each other. So it's very possible it's a foreign country. Everybody wants to blame the FBI and CIA, but it's very possible that it's a foreign country that's orchestrating this all. And that's all I had to say about it.
I think there's a lot of possibilities here. Personally, there may be involvement with foreign countries, but there sure as Shinola is involvement with our own country and our own authorities. And we know this by what happens when we try to access justice, when we try to get medical reports. I was recently contacted by someone who had gone to Dr. Hoffer, who was supposed to be running tests on those Canadian diplomats who were attacked by energy weapons. And Dr. Hoffer is now refusing to give her own medical records. So, we have misconduct going on so many levels domestically. We have doctors, we have police, we have district attorneys, we have attorney generals. And if you start, my perspective is that there's a global impetus towards controlling populations, and that the directed energy weapons are one manifestation of this. And, that may involve other countries, but it certainly does involve our own country. That's how I see it.
It's called Nazi-occupied America. Go back
Thank
to
you.
Paperclip, go back to 47, and then spring forward. They're in every level. They're in every level of. They were put in every level of government, in the military. They formed the CIA, the NSA. You people need to wake up about what's going on in your country.
So you think it's fair to blame the FBI and the CIA for everything, including everything that's going on worldwide?
No, actually, you can't blame anybody because you really don't know.
Oh, fuck it. Oh, shit.
No, really, solid proof. You need... I mean, the CIA was just attacked by microwave weapons. They admitted it. In Australia. Just happened.
Right.
Well, then who did that?
That's what I mean, Doug. It's hard to put a label on the perpetrator. You got to have names, unless you want to start from the President of the United States and work your way down and then find out that it's none of them, or find out that they will settle out of court for a given amount of funds and give you a gag order. They don't want the secret out. Not yet. I don't know what the reasoning is. It's probably the trillions of dollars that they're going to owe us in the end. I think that's probably one of the reasons. They better put some money aside and let it accrue some interest.
Well, aren't there allegations they sell us off for brain research and stuff like that? I mean, Magnus Olson, a lot of people claim they're making a fortune off us.
We got to see a balance sheet somewhere.
We sure do.
It's great to make claims, but we have to have proof. On radio, my information comes from scientific documents, and I back up everything that I say. And the guests that I have are expected to do the same. So for somebody to make a claim like that, I hope he has records to back it up. That's all. Everybody is put under that scrutiny. If you write for a newspaper, or you're on radio, or you're on television, you got to have, unless you're mainstream news, which is allowed to tell lies, you have to have a backup. You have to have proof. Just like in a lawsuit, you have to have proof.
Okay, so that basically is conjecture. They never given any documentation or anything firm. they're guessing. Is that what you're saying? I mean,
they haven't. Well, if they had documentation, they would be the first one to put it out there, I would say. That's just my estimation of a response.
Okay, yeah, because I keep hearing a lot of people say that they're making a lot of money off doing this to us. And if they aren't, why are they doing it? I mean, this has got to cost money. I mean, I don't suffer that much in-personal harassment. I have some. My big problem is that damn weapon. But somebody's got to be doing this. It's got to cost money.
Well, how much is your internet bill a month?
About $100.
Yeah, there you go. So, I mean, how much is your food for a month? You know, just roughly. Well, that's what it costs a perp to sit in an apartment and do this, because a lot of these people are addicted gamers.
Okay,
look up gamer sometime, and you'll find a person sitting behind a computer that hasn't showered in weeks, with pizza boxes, cans, coffee cups, you name it, all over the place. That's an addicted gamer. Go ahead, Vicki.
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt. I know I do. There's something about my timing getting hit like this. No, it's even got me in trouble at work once or twice. It never used to be a problem. I'm just getting hit that hard anymore. It just pounds me. You see, you keep looking around. You keep reading this report, that report, and some people claim there's AI. It's not even really people that are in our minds. You say they're gamers. And they're saying, I mean, it's like sharing. People say they could track it back to universities and stuff like that. You know, you get to the point you don't know what to believe. But somebody's doing it. I don't know how it's possible. I have a lot of theories, but I know it's happening.
Well,
I don't think that's artificial intelligence, because if it is, it's pretty sophisticated. Whoever has that thing on me in my head.
Okay. Computer programs in general are very sophisticated, especially today. But the program that drops the thought into your head or flashes the picture, this could be a computer program, not even AI, but just a program that has been following your every move and catalogs it. I've been saying this for years. They are paralleling everything that you do, your habits, your do's, your don'ts, where you go, all your friends, your family, all their phone numbers, their social security numbers if they manage to get them. So what I'm trying to say is they are like a best friend, worst enemy, who has been watching you for years, right down to the bathroom and the shower. So what kind of information can someone like that have on you? Tons. And some of the stuff they guess at. And if they're right, okay, that gets logged. But I was told this in the very beginning. This is a lot simpler than you think it is, but it's a lot more complex than you think it is. And that's what the perp said in the very beginning. And I'll tell you a story. This is a true story. When I grew up, I was on Sunset Point in Hull, Massachusetts, right on Hull Bay. And it was great. We had two very tall, they're still there, WBZ booster towers. And we lived, probably about a block and a half or better, or away from the fall zone, which was a swamp. In other words, the fall zone is, okay, if the antenna tips over, it's going to fall over within this zone. But the bottom line is, the neighborhood was so saturated with WBZ that if you put a fork and a spoon just touching each other just right, you could hear WBZ in the morning news. So what I'm trying to say is, what we may be experiencing is a saturation in a given area. In the UK, they had such a saturation, around 3 women's camps that kept these women in these camps. But there's a lot of different theories on it. But the saturation wouldn't work possibly because the person next to you would probably hear it. Like the WBZ towers, everyone in the family heard it. So, no comment.
Yeah, I mean, I'm saying you guess, you look, and this person's got this, and this person's got that, and yeah.
Vicky,
I mean,
what you have to understand is that there are people who are in different stages of this program.
Yeah.
Some people are just starting out in this program. Some people are, like myself, it's been over 9 years as of October the 15th, so I'm working on 10 years now. We're into mind games, head games, mind games, sexual torture, and changing of your breath.
Yeah, I'm not really saying it's anybody's fault. It's just very frustrating. And see, with me, it's been going on since before 2002.
Yeah, I didn't mention any fault.
Yeah, it's just frustrating that there's no more solid answers. And I'm not saying maybe there's different situations. One person may have a gamer, another person may have, a computer on them. It's just frustrating. That's what I'm saying.
No, see, what you're missing is this. Remember I asked you how much your cable bill was? Well, for the mob, we'll say you're a Washington mobster, okay? What does it cost you to have 10 people sit in a room and sit back? And what does the cable cost you? Hardly nothing. And you're paying a bunch of guys minimum wage to sit in front of computers and harass people. Look at it that way. It could be organized crime. Organized crime, large corporations that you've pissed off. Excuse my English.
I think in my case, my best guess is it's a police officer who was upset with me is how I got wrapped up in this.
Okay.
If it's not him, I have no idea, but I'm 75% sure it's Super Trooper.
Okay, Super Trooper has something that he would like to have later on in life, and that's a pension. So if Super Trooper is in his 50s, he's thinking about retiring, or whenever they retire. Do you think that a policeman would risk his pension? I don't think so. But it's just a guess. That's my opinion. Okay? And I don't think a police officer would do that.
What do you mean by risk their pension? A lot of victims claim the police are wrong.
Lose their pension. That pension is worth, God, what do you think a police officer gets? Are there any police?
He is now the chief of police. He wasn't when I met him when we were younger.
Okay, well, then he's got one hell of a pension coming. And he won't have to worry about anything. So do you think he wants to lose that?
No, I'm sure he doesn't. I'm saying if I was told he's the one who got me wrapped up in this, and he is definitely involved because he's harassed me in person. If they had to put a gun to his head, he's harassed me in person. So he's involved.
That's different. I would have taken him to court right there. Putting a gun to your head? A gun to his head?
No, I said, how do you prove it? He has harassed me in person. Like, I was told, and it doesn't make it true, that he was responsible for getting me involved in this.
Okay, that's physical harassment. That's physical stalking and harassment.
Okay.
Physical meaning prosecutable because it is happening physically to you. If you had a cam on, This is why a lot of TIs wear head cams and stuff for these assaults that are real. They're tangible. They are actually happening. So that falls into the category of real, tangible stalking.
Okay. Yeah. My harassment, definitely, life went crazy in 2002. Now, I was given that piece of information around 2010. I really hadn't been harassed in person at all until then. Then I emailed him, and, I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. I said, Christopher, what is going on? Do you have something to do with this? And then I went to a store in his district shopping sometime later. It's about 4 miles from my house where his district starts. He was waiting for me, so he knew I was coming. And I went into the Myers parking lot. The cops were sitting there. They started circling me. That happened a few times. So I was harassed sometimes in the store. They drive by my driveway slowly. They knocked at my door. They cornered me in a park. Maybe 20 times. It hasn't happened since 2017. But all my in-person harassment has been the police. But I didn't know about all this back then. I mean, it's the police. Who do you report it to? 100% of my in-person harassment was the police. And I didn't record it. I mean, how do you prove it? I didn't know about all this back then. I hadn't made contact with any of the groups, and I barely stumbled across the words. I mean, life goes crazy. You got this thing hitting you. You don't know what the hell's going on. I'd never heard the word targeted individual. I didn't even know DEW, this weaponry existed. It took years to put the pieces together. I mean, I didn't know about all that back then, make recordings. I mean, it's the police. Who in the hell are you going to report it to? Now, I haven't been harassed at all since 2017 in person. And considering what other people went through, it was mild, what they've done to me. But if he didn't get me involved, he's definitely involved now. Because he was waiting for me when I crossed the line into his district. And when I pulled into the store parking lot, the cop cars were waiting for me. They just started circling me in the parking lot. I can't believe he did this to me. I was crazy about the guy when I was younger. And the reason I was given it was he was being vindictive because I started the day with the guy with more money. But he had a girlfriend the whole time who was now his wife and never asked me out for a cup of coffee. That's where it gets really bizarre and hard to believe. And you have to know, Christopher, he's very good looking, and that man is not shy. But I'm saying I didn't know about all that back then. I haven't been harassed in person since 2017. It stopped. And they did it maybe 20 times over the years. Considering what other people went through in person, it's been mild. But, yeah, he's involved. He's had to put a gun to his head. He's harassed me in person. I can't swear he got me wrapped up in this, but the timeline when it started does fit when I started dating John, the guy with more money.
How long ago was that, Vicki?
I was 31 at the time.
Okay. So he's chief of police now, then.
Oh, yeah, Super Troopers, the chief of... He was lieutenant back then, but he's the chief of police now.
Yeah, now... okay, well, I would start researching. The reason Janet Phelan has all of her knowledge and puts things together is because she researches, and she has learned to research over the years, and she knows how to find out things.
Well, that's what I'm saying as far as the information goes. I mean, I really get slammed, Frank. I mean, I know you don't know me personally. I was competent. I was successful. I was going places. I'm articulate. I'm intelligent. I would have been fine. I get hit so hard with that thing, I'm dysfunctional. Sometimes I hear other people, I've seen comments, how the hell do you get all this done? I can barely keep my house clean. And when I try to do things, they up the targeting. Does that make sense? I try to focus and concentrate. They make it worse, so I can't. It's a really bad situation. I have been doing research. That's what I said. And this stuff, I mean, if you're not really a technical person, it's really high-tech stuff. And you run into this, you run into that, you run into this, you're trying to do research. I have been trying to do research on and off throughout the years. I had kind of given up years ago about finding shielding and any help. I had contacted Dr. Nick Breggett, I think in 2011, 2012. And he asked me back personally, is there any way you could protect yourself from this? By then I had put it together it was the HARP. I thought it was the HARP. And it probably is. And he just answered back, no, there's nothing I know of. And I assumed if he didn't know of anything, it doesn't exist. Then I got looking through years later, and I saw some people saying some success with shielding. Then I started doing more looking around, and then I decided to get in contact with the groups because there's so much information out there, Frank. I mean, your head starts to spin. You're trying to do research, and your head just starts to spin. Do scalar waves even exist? I've heard about 10 arguments, and I know the science is above my head, especially in the situation. Things I'd normally be able to do, I can't do it. I have problems.
They make a lot of sense, Vicki. They make a lot of sense. I'll tell you why.
I mean, it's frustrating because things that should be so simple, it's like I want to get up, and I'm getting pounded, and they up it so much, I want to sit in this chair for hours, and I don't want
Vicki,
to.
Scalar waves make a lot of sense because they can go through the Earth and out the other side. Okay, it makes a lot of sense because people have gone down in like Rushmore Cave. They've gone, obviously, up into airplanes. The electronic attacks continue. The V2K continues in the plane, and it's with them when they land 6,000 miles away. So you have to figure this is something that can encompass the entire Earth. Now, there are 3 things that can do that, okay? One of them are the satellites that we have in orbit. They weren't around forever, okay? Remember that. We didn't have the satellites that we have now. The second thing is over-the-horizon radar. Okay, look to the Montauk Project for this really slippery radar that crawls along the ground. Then the third thing that you want to look at that encompasses the entire Earth is the Schumann resonance. They might be using that. So it's not Dr. Dangerfield down the street with a ray gun. This will follow you all over the world. And the perps aren't following you. I hear this all the time. Oh, well, the perps are going to hop in the car and follow me. You know, I've been in states where I'm on a straight road. I see it 12, midnight, 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm steaming along at 70, 75 miles an hour. There is nothing in front of me, nothing behind me. Yet, there is still the V2K and the attacks. So, I got hospitalized in Pennsylvania, and I went to the Pennsylvania FBI. You know, I was bullshit, you know, that they had the audacity to attack me while I was on the road. And I just don't get it. And I hear reports from all over the place about how they can do this anywhere.
Yeah, Frank. I mean, I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry. I thought you were done. I had no illusions.
That's okay.
I've never been followed around. I have never been followed around. I had suffered no in-person harassment until years after this started. I never assumed somebody was following me around and harassing me with a little thing. When I found out I put enough of the pieces together, I just automatically went to the HARP. Now, for a while there, I thought it was coming out of the signals in the house. Because nobody's following me around and harassing me. That's never been my problem. And when the police did they'd harass me for a minute and leave. You know, they consider what other people have been through. What I've been through is not much. But I assumed it was, finally I put enough pieces together, I thought it was coming out of like the wiring in the signals. So I fled to the Amish in Indiana. They have no electricity there. It didn't change a thing. I'm saying in my situation where I go, it's irrelevant. If I go outside, go to my parents' house, go to the Amish, go in the woods, that thing pounds me 24/7. But I'm saying you do research. You try to figure out how are they doing this? Okay, is it nanotechnology? Do they have implants? They're mapping our brainwaves and making copies. They don't need any of it. Why are they doing it? They're selling us off for research. It's just sadism. They like to kill. Then, you know, I'm saying you try to figure out what kind of signal are they using on you. Let's talk about shielding. And I'm saying your head starts to spin. And if you're a very technical person, because things I should normally be able to do, because, I mean, I'm not bragging. I was a pretty bright kid. You know the kid that got passed over in school? I have a learner vernacular. I can function in a professional environment, I'll be honest. That kid in reality was me.
Slow down.
Slow down.
I'm sorry. And it's the torture. My dad has the same complaint. Somehow I managed to slow down for work, but then people ask me, are you a computer? But I have to. But I'm saying then you do all this research trying to figure out who is it? Why are they doing it? How is it being done? And what is the motivation? And how do you stop it? And you run into so much information, and people are vicious. You're crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. You're lying. You're a perp. You're placed by the government to lead the victims off track. And if you're a very technical person, because things I should normally be able to do, I can't do. But I can read enough and concentrate enough to know this is what's being suggested, but this stuff is so high-tech. What I was saying about the scalar waves is just on that. I had to listen to probably 5 hours of arguments whether scalar waves even exist. And I know that science is so far above my head. I can read it all day long. And I'm not going to know. I'm just not going to know.
They have scalar antennas, Vicki. They have scalar antennas. They look almost like a barber pole.
I know what you're saying, Frank. And I did a little research, and I tend to believe they exist, but I'm not an expert. But that's as much as I can make out. But I'm saying that's just one subject. I've listened to probably 5 hours of arguments over this time, whether scalar waves even exist. But according to Tony P., you, and Neil, that's probably what's hitting me. That's why I get hit so hard and it's so hard to block. But I'm saying this is the situation the average TI is in. And Neil gets very upset. Not more people are volunteering for his research group. And I had to explain to him, a lot of people, some people get hit harder than others. And you guys aren't oblivious to that. Because I've heard Miss Matt.
Some people's tolerances, I have to interrupt you, Vicki, because you won't slow down. You need, oh God, whipped right out of me. Scalar waves, the reason your countermeasures don't work is because scalar waves can go through anything, okay, including your head.
I called Tony P. and described it to him, and that's from everybody who seems to know what they're talking about, what I'm probably being hit with. But I'm saying it's hard to explain to somebody like you or Neil. This science is above most people's heads. They're going to research it all day long. It's not that they don't want to. That's why they're so desperate. They just can't.
Do you realize solar? They had solar generators or solar wave machines, if you want to call it that, in the agricultural industry back when they were put into a wooden box. And I can't think of the name of the company, but they still make them, and they still put them in that wooden box for years. And they help the crops to grow. Look up scalar waves and crops, or scalar waves and flora, whatever you want to, however you'd like to look them up. But scalar waves.
I didn't interrupt. I remember looking that up. But what I'm saying, that's just one subject out of, are implants evolved? Is it nanotech? Do you need any of it? You run into all these opinions. What type of waves are they using on us? Why are they doing it? Is money involved? Who is doing it?
Vicki,
motivation.
You're pulling up too many files in your computerized head, okay? Just stick with one file at a time for little kiddies, okay? We have to look at one thing.
Stop interrupting Frank all the time.
I'm sorry. The point I was trying to make is the situation you run into with the scalar waves is replicated with every issue. You come in with at least 3 people that sound like they know what they're talking about with different answers, and then your head really starts to spin. I'm done. That's what I'm trying to say. It's
okay.
The answers aren't that obvious. My guess is that we found them.
All right. Picture a government-constructed Faraday cage. You go inside it, like at MIT, and you close the door, and you still have your V2K. So what's going on? I'll tell you. Whatever it is, I'm not even going to name anything. Whatever it is goes right through the Faraday cage like a hot knife through butter, or even faster at the speed of light. So that's all I'm going to say. There have been some Faraday cages that are unbelievable. And I think probably the United States government at NORAD has perfected a way of blocking them. But I know that the embassies use gold in their glass on their windows. So, I mean, real flecks of gold.
Oh, my God.
So, with that, I will tell you that there are films that you can buy to put on your windows. They're to darken them, but they also have aluminum flecks in them, which may help. But if we're dealing with any kind of scalar waves will, go, like I say, go through the earth and out the other side. Unfortunately, Robert Duncan said when over the years that, okay, we've created it, but we don't have a countermeasure to it. So, you know, that's kind of a little bit crazy, because if you build something, you obviously know how to defend against it. Or do you? I had Robert as a guest be a year ago, January, and he, every one of my questions, it was a Q&A presentation. That's the way that Dr. Duncan wanted it. And so he wasn't aware of the questions that I was going to ask, but all the questions he asked, but he didn't ask. If you want to hear the presentation, it's on our YouTube site, and you'll just see a picture of Robert Duncan on the front of the video. So with that, you guys have the floor. It's your call. The only time it's my call is when there's a problem. So we have 54 callers that I'm sure would like to chat. And we have plenty of time.
Well, hey, this is Marcus. I just want to say that there's a civil action lawsuit against perpetrators at University of New Mexico Hospital slipping chips inside of people, unknowing patients. And if you're from New Mexico and you've been chipped with implants, then let me know, because I'm getting warmer here. I'm on the track of the attorney that might be representing clients for being implanted with microchips that have remote neural monitoring and other capabilities inside of them.
Marcus, why don't we have these people email you, and you can email me, so that we can organize this thing? You know, my two groups aren't supporting a class action suit, but if you have a suit against the hospital, that's a human rights issue. I'm interested.
Yeah, they can email me. Do you want me to give my email out right now? I don't mind doing that.
That's a good idea. I think you'll find a lot of people interested. just give the name of the hospital and what exactly has transpired to date, and that would be much appreciated. If you'd keep me apprised, I will help you.
So how do I do that? Do I just mention it right now on the phone call?
Yeah, you can do that, or if you don't mind doing that, go ahead. If you have reservations about doing that, you can have people...
No, I'm fine. I want to give my email out so that other people can send me their information about being implanted with chips, especially if they're in New Mexico.
Yeah, and I would like to add, if some people get operated on and have these chips removed, at least get the numbers off of them so that I can trace them. I have not been able to get one chip ID'd or sent to me because there's
like David Larson. David Larson has a lot, but he was in California, and that was in the late 90s.
Yeah, I've got his report on our site. Very interesting report too. What you would call a normal chip does not even exist in the Larson report. These so-called chips look like bits of flesh, and you can actually see the wiring inside these bits of flesh.
Exactly.
And it's really incredible. And they would be very hard to pick up, I would think. But
yeah, I've read his report twice.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Well, my email account, if anyone here on this call was implanted with chips in New Mexico, is marhopke@gmail.com. marhopki@gmail.com.
All right, slow down, Marcus, and say it again, okay?
Yeah, it's marhopke, marhopki, @gmail.com.
Okay, I hope tonight, Janet, that a lot of the air has been cleared of all of the bitter accusations and whatnot, simply because you are looking for the truth.
Well, I hope so too. And I appreciate the time to discuss all this, because I think, as far as the UN goes, as far as treaties go, as far as what, our options are, for us, information is power. So I'm actually going to hit the sack now, Frank, and I will call you at 2 p.m. I will call you at 2 p.m. tomorrow, and hopefully we can start to do something about the stupid drone. Okay. Thank you so much for everything. Okay. Good night.
Good night. Yeah, well, I was going to take us off course a little bit from targeting and say, hey, where's the stimulus checks? A lot of people didn't get the first one, and we've been dawdled all the way from, July? And we're still being dawdled along. I'm sure there's a lot of people who can use the money. Anybody hear anything?
About a month ago, I heard that they were still debating it in the House, that they were going to send out a second stimulus check.
Yeah, that's what I heard a while back too. But I was hoping somebody had some problems.
I read Pelosi said not until after the election. The stimulus check isn't going to be used to win the election. I
see.
Trump signed the check.
What does Pelosi think, that Biden's actually going to win?
Apparently.
Yeah, well, he's got some skeletons coming out of the closet now.
You want to hear a political conundrum I just had? In Maine, we have, not that I'm asking you, but I'll just tell you, I'm sorry. In Maine, we have what's called ranked choice. And so for president, there's 4 people on the ballot, and you're supposed to rank whoever you want first. And if that person doesn't win, you're supposed to mark the next one, on throw. So you check off in order of preference who you want to win. There's a way around that to not participate, and it's not by only marking your candidate for the first round. You have to mark your candidate for all 4 rounds. That's not explained to anyone. It's kind of like a little secret. If you only mark your candidate one time, they throw your ballot away. You have to have all 4 holes marked off in order of preference. And it's confusing. And so I went to my government website, and I wanted to find out exactly the right way to do it. There was a video there. There was no written instructions, and it's a cartoon video. So I start watching it. They have 4 candidates as the example. It's a little cartoon. And they give the names of the candidates. Instead of putting in real names, they use colors. Number 1 is blue. Number 2 is yellow. Number 3 is purple. And number 4 is orange. Well, I thought, well, that's funny. They use blue. And then they make blue the winner, but they make orange the loser. And there's a Democrat significance to the color blue, and I'm thinking, why didn't they use red? And then I get to think, oh, orange man, and I'm like, wow, I'm really jaded, So the video goes on, and they start talking about another thing, and so they give another example, and this time they've named the candidates with cartoon characters. Number 1 is Donald Duck. Number 2 is Fred Flintstone. Number 3 is Wonder Woman. And I think number 4 was Spider-Man. They only used one candidate's name in these cartoon names. And they also made him, I think he lost, but I'm not sure. But that's from the Maine Secretary of State. I live in a Democrat state, a Democrat-run, the governor is Democrat, so the Secretary of State works for the governor. They put that out. It's on YouTube, and it's on the Maine State website. How can we expect that little slight, that little joke is, there's other people that noticed it too. I wasn't the only one, and people made comments on it. But that is coming from the person who counts our votes. And the towns can only count ballots. How does it work? Oh, they count the ballots, and if no candidate wins by greater than 50%, then all the ballots they have must go to the Secretary of State, and the Secretary of State gets to count them. Well, the last presidential election, we had someone I wasn't fond of who ran in the Republican race, and he actually won the vote, but he lost due to this ranked choice count. And the final say is the Secretary of State. So how can we trust the Secretary of State who's putting out little videos shunning one party, kind of, in a roundabout way? It just seems to me that's like, just really covert, nasty interference with the election process. But anyways, that's my gripe.
Okay, Richard, it'd be great to hear from you.
Well, I was going to step in a minute ago and let you know that there was word on the stimulus check. It was either going to be just before Christmas or just after, and that was the last word that they did put out there. The money apparently has already been voted on, but the amount was disputed, so they're going back at it again, but they still said somewhere around before or after Christmas. And Pelosi, in fact, has already spoken to Congress pertaining to the voting and has told Congress to go ahead and prepare to be ready to pick the next president, and is pertaining to this, sort of pertaining to this ranked system, but we'll have to wait and see on the stimulus check as well as the voting. It seems like we're doing a lot of waiting, a lot of speculating, and, well, who knows, maybe some things will change within the next few months. I wanted to bring up, not to change gears so drastically, but it is the holidays, and we have an awful lot of TIs out there that are struggling and on their last leg, so to speak, to try to get by. The jobs, the money, the income, the families just don't have it this year, and especially TIs. So if you have some answers for some of the TIs or some of the families, please do take a minute to try to help whoever you can. We have a lot of answers amongst ourselves. We do a lot of research and going online and trusting and depending on this and that and the other, but the answers we need are within ourselves. We've lost a few other TIs in the last month or two, and most people don't even hear much about it, but it's still happening. So during the holidays, try to remember that even though our suffering is what it is, there are some out there that are suffering much more than we are and could use our help. And ending, I'd like to say that our help lies within us, our information, our knowledge, the things we have to put together to come up with the answers instead of continuing to ask the questions. Some people like the questions, they don't really care about the answers, but the answers are within us. For instance, I've recently been doing a lot of research and work with animals, TIs, animals that are showing and experiencing the same symptoms physically that TIs are experiencing and showing. So the same things are happening to us or happening to our animals. And if what I'm finding is true, then maybe we can find some vets to try to verify some of the things that are happening to them, and at the same time verify what's happening to us with the knowledge and learning of, well, what the vets can tell us. And that's a big thing. If there's any TIs out there that have animals with symptoms and going through things, if they're still alive, a lot of them are dying also. Please note, document, and test and care to vets and see if you can get knowledge from what's happening to your pets, and hold on to that information because it does pertain to you and maybe some of your family.
My dog already died from being shot by gang stalkers with tiny projectiles that left a couple red blood marks around his abdomen. And then he got cancer after that in the same area where those two red marks appeared. And they had been shooting me with projectiles, minor sized or micro, not quite micro, but a little bit bigger, like millimeter sized projectiles in my body. They shot hairs off my legs. They shot hairs off my head. And they were using a remote controlled firearm that shot micro projectiles at me. And they shot my dog with it. And my dog, they were contaminated with stuff that caused me to have mouth sores, which is crazy, but they were shooting me with projectiles that caused mouth sores in my butt, in my mouth. Soon after feeling these stickers, they felt like a sticker being shot inside of my leg or inside of my arm. And then my dog got cancer from it. He got shot in his abdomen. I saw the 2 red marks, the 2 red blisters that turned into blisters. First they were red marks, and then they turned into blisters. And then it turned into a big black blister. And then it turned into cancer, and he had to be put to sleep.
That's horrible, Marcus. I'm sorry. Along the lines of what Richard was saying about animals and pets, one thing that I had read about, I'd kind of researched into that because I had a dog that was chipped, and I knew about the chipping and the vets being able to read chips, and I kind of thought many times of like wishing I dared or knew a vet that I could go to be scanned. I never went, but I'm sure if I did, I would have found another hospital real quick. Because they probably, but I think that there's a lot of evidence among TIs that their pets die, and they seem targeted as well. When COVID came out, I have a situation where I live where they had a dog in the front apartment, and they weren't clean people at all, and the air pulls from the furnace from their apartment, and along with the fumes of drugs, it kind of concerned me that their dog was inside all day, never let out, and the house reeked of animal because the dog had accidents in the house on the carpet near the air vent. So in my research for that, I found out that dogs can carry staph infection and people can catch it from their dogs. So there's something to that, and I've been wondering if the new thing of staph, I don't know if you've ever heard of it, the methicillin resistant Staphylococcus aureus, I can't say, aureus, it's MRSA for short. MRSA, it's a staph infection that's resistant to antibiotics, and once you get it, they can't cure you. You pick it up at hospitals. Hospitals do not like to admit that they have caused that in a person because you will end up dying from it eventually. It creates sores, itching. There's a lot of stuff that it can cause. So, that's one thing to look out for. And if you have a dog that's sick, you want to make sure that dog doesn't have a staph infection, too, because I'm sure that if we're picking it up in the hospitals, other people have pets and they take it to the vet, and the vet could give it to your animal so they could pick it up easily, or if your dog has contact with other pets. So anyway, that's just some thought on it.
Yeah, the blisters on my dog, they were actually in his groin area, and they got bigger and bigger, and it was like the one spot where the two red marks were when they shot him with projectiles, And they shot me with projectiles enough time to knock half the hair off my legs. And I have pretty hairy legs normally. And they were sneaking remote-controlled devices that can move mobily under the carpet or on a hard surface. Obviously, if they can move through the carpet, then they could move their mobile devices onto almost any surface. And I was trying to catch them. I'd like vacuum clean and clean the carpet really good with the vacuum cleaner really quick after I felt a sticker shot in my arm or my leg. And it wasn't enough, though, because they would dash before I could catch them.
I think some of the effects of their surveillance programs, that they are directing frequencies at people, and I think that the radiation knocks down your immune system and things that you never would have been susceptible to before is possible. And like as far as cancer goes, cancer is a all too common word. And if you really research into what cancer is, it's when like the barrier around an organ is compromised and the organ starts to die, and then the body starts to try to encase, like say you have breast cancer, how it can be caused is by like something dissolving the encasement of the protective barrier that's around that organ. And like say it's fungus that gets into your into the tissue there. What your body does in response is it tries to encapsulate it like a cyst. So it's important that your immune system is working. Your body will encapsulate it and try to keep that poison from killing the rest of your body. Sometimes in cancer, that process goes nuts and it will keep growing, the encasement, like the walls around this tumor for whatever reason. If it happens inside, like an enclosed area, like a bone, it can cause you to have a fracture. If it happens in your brain, you can lose, there's only so much room in your skull. So if it expands and takes up space that your brain normally would have, you lose function. So they use the term cancer, but it starts out with something else that's wrong that causes or allows foreign bodies to invade an organ. And once that happens, it gets in your bloodstream and it can travel to other organs. So there's maybe, like kind of keep that in mind when you're thinking about the cancer. Is he had the sores. The sores turned because he got infected throughout his body. Once it's in the blood, it goes into your organs that way. It's kind of like a direct feed. So, if any lesson can be learned, it's that, sores and things like that, you really got to keep clean and, watch out for, because it can happen in an instant, like sepsis, like what Linda died of, or her initial problem. I don't know exactly what she died of, but sepsis was part of it. That's poisoning in your blood. So all of us have to watch out for that.
That makes sense, because it's kind of like when you hear that cancer spreads. So how does it spread? So it's probably through the blood system, correct? That's what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, it could spread that, like say you have like gluten and fluoride, and I just found out fructose too, can cause barriers in your body. They're called endothelium and epithelium, depending on if they're around an organ or working as a lining, like in your blood vessels or lymph. Just think of epidermis. That's the epithelium. You know, your skin is epidermis. And that's on the outside of you, okay? So you can remember that word. And endothelium is inside. N is EN, but think of it as in, and, you know, that's the one for the vessels. If those barriers are made such that they only allow certain molecules that an organ needs to function through, okay? And once there's a hole in that, like it starts in your gut, there's a lining in your gut. Once there's a hole there, the contents of your gut can seep out, and then it gets picked up by your bloodstream, and then it moves on to other organs, and it causes, you know, the same sort of damage to the other barriers, like your blood-brain barrier and any barrier around the organ. And then on top of it, you've got a hole in your gut, and the contents of your gut is, you know, in your bloodstream and can go to your, you know, and your body will try to encapsulate it, and it will make a tumor around it.